What's up, Trey? Thank you for having me back
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me. I mean, and also it's your first time in our
in the
Black Media Matter
studio.
studios.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're always welcome here. But, I want to just talk a little bit about your book first, because the courage, no, color of courage. Yeah, I kept flipping it, y'all. The color of courage really dives into a lot of the trends that you saw then, but are also still seeing now. Tell us a bit about some of the highlights from the book.
Yeah, thank you for that. Actually, reversing it is actually more powerful, right? The courage of color
Yeah.
for us to be able to sit here in these spaces and bring our stories forward is so important. And so, I am a year post that book being published and continue to watch and see the trends of what Black women are continuing to experience. I would suggest that it has gotten worse in terms of how Black women are being treated, and I'm going to use the word disposed of. I am watching the trends on some of the social platforms, particularly the quote unquote professional platform of LinkedIn. And the policing of Black women on that platform, and people who are speaking out um, exponentially on that platform that I've not seen before. So, my view is that that is continuing, it is being perpetuated, and we are seeing very slow progress in that area.
Yeah, this for me is something that I think was the catalyst, honestly, Cindy, for me to say, where else can I bring my brilliance? Because
Mhm.
we find ourselves in these spaces knowing what we're capable of, but often not giving the opportunities to fully showcase that. Or we see that when we do, our ideas, our projects get snatched by other people, our brilliance gets co opted, right? We see this oftentimes where it's like, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, we heard you. Some white man says the same thing in the same meeting, and all of a sudden he's getting all of the praise. This is something that is continuous when we talk about corporate spaces. And it's unfortunate, some of the things you were just sharing with me is that now people who are stepping out are getting, blamed. I mean, all of this stuff on social media. Tell us about some of those trends you're
Yeah.
seeing.
One thing that you just said, Trey, I think really important to amplify around, because you and I talked a little bit about this last time I was here with you. Um, the work of Black women, what you're describing around it being plagiarized and taken advantage of and so forth. I'm also going to say boldly that Black business women, women like me, women who are out bidding for work in corporate spaces, our proposals, the way that we are being required to put proposals together with detailed information about how we will approach problems. Our proposals, I can't tell you how many I have put in, and the return on those is in single digits. So they have all of our intellectual property, our knowledge. They take those proposals and then they go out and they're giving those businesses that business to a lot of women, mostly white women. And so when you look at the data and the statistics around who's prevailing under diversity statistics, gender is what is being used, not race. And so we as Black women are still not prevailing in a niche. Diversity, equity, all of that work is the lives that we live, and we have spent decades in those spaces and have so much experience. And yet now, one of the other, just going to call it a gatekeeping process that has shown its head now, is DEI certificates that they're requiring that people have, that I just refuse to. I've done my dues. I'm educated. I'm experienced, but that is now how the corporate infrastructure sets barriers, puts barriers in the way to help keep Black people out, Black women out. That is real. So our businesses are being penalized. And then inside, you asked about the trends that I see, the Black women on particularly LinkedIn, like LinkedIn is being called out in ways because policing is happening to Black women's voices on that platform. And all people have to do is hit the button it's offensive or whatever the links are, and then they get shut down, so their voices get shut down. And so the way that Black women are, even their algorithms, like, Black women are leaving, they are done, they are no longer going to be in abusive situations anymore. And like you were and I were talking before the show, Black women are now the largest growing demographic of entrepreneurs, getting away from that sort of abuse and disrespect. And that's the trends that I'm watching happen. And those are the conversations I've been having with other Black women.
This is really intriguing to me too, Cindy, because I mean, we all saw this influx of what looked like genuine care post directly post George Floyd. Now you're saying 2 years later, a lot of that is waned, right? It's just literally receded, and it's being met with all of these other tactics that are bringing about more and more barriers for diverse folks from the global majority to elevate in these spaces. It's interesting because a lot of people predicted these trends. Really, a lot of folks, especially I think in Black community, they're like, "Oh, that ain't gonna last long. Oh, it's trending right now, so they care. Oh, people are giving money because they're able to kind of check mark a box off, say, well, look, what we did was we donated to such and so, right?" We see that often too, and this is why what I've been really sharing with a lot of folks in the nonprofit sector is, as we build relationships with philanthropic partners, it's got to be based on relationship, period. If you're thinking about donating and funding something in global majority style nonprofit sector, you got to start with the real relationship, and it's got to be long term. It's got to be unrestricted funds over the long haul to really build capacity in these organizations. So we've been doing a lot of educating in the nonprofit sector. I think even in Black business sector, where I see here at Converge, it's like we won't take, all dollars ain't good dollars, right? All money's not good money, and we won't go after certain partnerships or allow certain partnerships to flourish here because we understand that their intent isn't good, right? They're looking for that check mark to drop off. Okay, there's my DEI thing right there because I'm working with Converge. This is something that we take really seriously here. How do you see these kind of trends going? I mean, are we thinking that now is the time? Because for a minute there, a lot of Black folks and global majority folks have been like, look, I'm brilliant. I could help this company do something great. The problem is that I'm not given the opportunities to really do that. Or like I said, people are stealing those ideas. You're being in a meeting, say one thing, and okay, this person, you said it and it was all right. But then this person said the exact same thing, and wow, you know what I mean? It's amazing. I mean, what are some of the things that folks can really do who are maybe still stuck in these trends and trying to raise up in the corporate space? What is it that they can be doing right now?
A couple things I would say. One is that we have to have corporate America stop looking at Black people as all of our businesses have to be not labeled as nonprofit, a tax write-off for them, charity. We are not all charitable organizations. We are out wanting and desiring wealth and profit just like them. And so changing their narrative about how they give money into communities, we as Black people, we as Black women can run profitable businesses. We are educated. We know how this is done. So we have to stop only being seen as charity so that they get a tax write-off on their end and claiming the box of do good. I've done something for Converge Media, so therefore that's my equity. No, if you really want equity, you start helping give us an equitable split on your profitability for our services. Stop charging us fees and then trying to whittle our fees and our profit away from us, but pay us equitably to what white men make. I happen to have been a person high enough in several organizations in this town where I signed those contracts, where I saw what white people get paid, what white consultants make. I saw it and signed it and paid them. So there's no rubbing, telling me that those are what our fees are too inflated or too whatever. This is a niche market. And Business School 101 teaches you that in a niche market, we deserve to have a premium attached to our fees. So that's issue number one that I think we have to change the mindset of organizations who contribute money. They have to do it beyond 501c3s. They have to start doing it into people who are actually making a profit. That's issue number one, to answer your question. And issue number two, I actually talk about in my book, is how to start dealing with the system of inequity inside of corporate America. And so, those systems that we have, we've got to start sharing power with Black people inside of organizations. And by an example of how I would suggest sharing power, the way that there's a performance management system, it's what is used to tear Black people out of these organizations. I believe that performance management system needs to go, and or take it where the people in the organizations are being able to give equal feedback on the colonized managers that they work for,
Mm.
and take the way that performance management systems, the goals, they are each weighted. We should put a heavier weighting on how those managers are, because those weightings are what translates into their bonuses. And that's where wealth gap is being capped. That's where being able to build wealth is being taken from us. And so, again, those systems need to go. We must share power inside of organizations. And for those of us that are Black businesses, we must have equitable split on profitability of these companies for our services. And we should not be touting this kind of work to anybody other than Brown and Black people at
Yeah.
this stage of the game, period.
Yeah, this is, just to be clear too, that's why Converge is a for-profit business,
Mhm.
right? Converge is like, look, we're exactly what you're talking about. We're not charity. We're not this. Now, I work in the nonprofit sector outside of Converge, but I realize the need for the both and approach, right?
Mhm.
Like there is something to be said. We talk about this in terms of nonprofit industrial complex. We deal with the competition of, the small fund of philanthropic dollars always in nonprofit sectors. What I love about what you're sharing here is that there people go into business intentionally and they understand their business. I think there's a misnomer too that there's a driving force to figure out what market is trending right now and
Mhm.
create businesses in that market. Instead, what's happening is people are using their personalized experience and their expertise to now build out services that are going to be beneficial to anybody who chooses to do business with them. That's
Mhm.
exactly what I love here at Converge. Is we've said, look, we're not trying to tell stories like anybody else. We're telling stories like we know we need to tell stories.
Right.
We're fitting into this market by being exceptional at what we do and purposeful. So for me, there's so much about that that I also see kind of in the nonprofit sector where it's like, look, we have to be an organization who's going to advocate for all of these amazing organizations because no one was doing it. And that's my work with King County Equity Now is it's so important to be able to uplift all of this kind of stuff
Mhm.
because the advocacy piece helps to then create new policy and
Yeah.
legislation that's lowering those barriers. But what you're talking about here is so direct and intentionally so. This is something that I think is important, Cindi, because a lot of us need to wake up to the fact that we are worth it. And we were
Yes.
talking earlier about us breaking down our own ways of anti-blackness and upholding white supremacy and all of these things because of how a lot of us, particularly those who went to collegiate institutions, maybe outside of HBCUs, right? Were really taught with a certain way and ideology about what success looks like, right?
Mhm.
And it's very much in this kind of white lens. So I just appreciate you sharing all this. I know we're running out of time, but I want to give you some time to make sure folks can catch up with you. I know you have your radio show, you have your book. Look right there, let them know how they can tap in with
Oh,
you, Cindi.
thank you, Trae. Thank you all for watching the show tonight. I am the host of Heartbeat Radio. So I am on Rainier Avenue Radio, and I talk about these issues. Both the system of politics where power should be given. So I bring on a lot of elected officials, and I aim to highlight candidates that are coming up and who are progressive and willing to go up against the system. So I'm aired live Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio. You can also find my book. Thank you for supporting me. I sell it on Amazon. I hate even saying that out loud to you, but it's or anywhere books are sold. But my book does tell my own personal story, including a lot of ideas towards the end of the book about ways of progress for us as Black people, as Black women in corporate America. So thank you, Trae, for highlighting that and having me back on to talk with you today.
Hey, Cindi, anytime. I just told Cindi, you guys, before the show, I said, look, I need to tap in with you weekly because you're connected to things that I'm not necessarily connected to.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't even get into it, but I just gotta say, you guys want to check out Quietly Quitting.
Yeah,
It's something that's trending
hashtag,
right now,
yeah,
right?
hashtag quiet quitting. Yes, it's a Gen Z hashtag around walking away. It's basically walking away and saying, if you won't support us and you want to continue to abuse us, we have the power, the courage, the strength, the courage to go out on our own and start doing things ourselves. So
there it is. There it is, Cindi. Thank you so much for joining me
thank
today.
you, Trae.
Absolutely. You guys.